Value of patience. Patience is a test of our development. Manifested in our daily lives, it shows whether we have used or abused the opportunities presented during former experiences. What great understanding results when we exercise this attribute. It is through patience that we get a better understanding of the Father and His relationship to His children. It is through patience that we get a better understanding of the crosses that we bear day by day. One that is without crosses has ceased to be of notice and is no longer among the children. We may be called upon to bear not only our own crosses, but those of others. If we would approach the throne, we must come leaning upon the arm of a neighbor we have helped. This manifests our relationship to each other. Patience, as nothing else, shows growth. We often find ourselves so able to meet some difficult problems that we feel we have solved them before. Doubtless we have, again and again. At other times we are not able to cope with problems not nearly so intricate. Why do we have such experiences? If we fail in meeting these in the right spirit and find ourselves beaten, do we not act the parts of weaklings? As we realize our mistakes, we become ashamed that we lost hold of ourselves and resolve that we will profit by the mistakes. Because of these experiences, we should ever afterwards count ourselves happy to endure and be more willing to wait until we are better understood and until we can better understand. It is the lessons learned through patience that in the end strengthen and help us. Then we become examples to others. Something, too, has taken place within us. For something is written that the hand of time cannot efface. We have found a pearl of great price to be set in the soul, where it will remain through all eternity. How kind is the wise provision of the Father! He gives to us each moment just what we are able to use. We cannot use aright that which we do not understand. I have yet many things to say unto you, but ye cannot bear them now. As we do our bit to make His promises real by showing our neighbors that we understand their burdens and are ready to help them bear them, we become more and more able to know the love of the Father and more conscious of our own growth. The beauty of the soul shows in the life of individuals who have patience. This comes to those who have a constant prayerful attitude for a purposeful life. In order to have this beauty of the soul's expression, it is necessary that we forget ourselves. It is not altogether an outward growth, but an inward one, too. It is the result of introspection, which is the foundation of deep meditation. Love is manifested in every word and act, even as it was in those of the Master. So, through patience let us magnify His attributes in our experiences. There is nothing to regret in exercising patience, there is everything in the loss of it. We are building for eternity. Results do not always manifest at once. One individual relates the following experience. I was called upon to pass through a great trial. My supply of patience and endurance seemed to become more and more depleted as the days went by. Beginning to realize, at last, that I was only an instrument, a channel through which God's will was being manifested, my strength and courage gradually returned until, without fear, I faced the issues at stake and came to a clearer and better understanding of the problem. It was worth all to have patiently waited and to have felt His presence. His presence with peace is the promise to us who with patience endure the crosses that are set before us day by day. Before that the entity was in the English land, in the name Marie Culpeper. The entity contributed to those activities in thought in which individuals were in those groups not controlled by edicts of church or of a group. These have brought to the experience of the entity in the present those opportunities in which the entity may aid in adding to the confidence of the individual in itself. For as the true law of such associations is announced, Thy spirit beareth witness with my spirit as to whether ye be children of God or not. The entity brought the awareness of this more often in its experience through the earth, adding to brotherly love, kindness, gentleness, patience, long-suffering. These are not of the law, for they are the law as applied in self. The records are upon time and space, which are manifestations of that influence or force we call God. They are both old and ever new. But only in patience does the finite mind become aware of the value of same upon the infinite, or the spiritual self. Thus the records are taken from this skein of time and space. Hence, as an entity enters and leaves consciousness in materiality, there is left upon time and space that which has been the activity, thus there may be the interpreting of same. There are influences, urges latent and manifested in the entity. The entity being body, mind, soul, that which manifests in and out of material, mental and spiritual consciousnesses. Thus we find urges, owing to that which has been practiced or applied in the various stages of development or retardment, that are measured by what has been called astrological, numerological terms, or by that to which the entity in any phase of its consciousness has attributed or given an urge or influence. Then, we find there are the varied influences that are termed by those of varied thought or study, or cult or activity, according to that needed in this or that experience. Know, however, that no urge, no influence is greater than the birthright of the entity, the will, that which is given to the soul to manifest in the beginning, as to be active within itself, independent of or in coordination with its source, or divinity itself. Yet the very gift of the Maker is divine. But this may be used or abused. It may be applied or laid aside. Thus we find that the sojourns about the earth, during the interims between earthly sojourns, are called the astrological aspects. Not that an entity may have manifested physically on such planets, but in that consciousness which is the consciousness of that environ. And these have been accredited with certain potential influences in the mental aspect of an entity. We find that these become more and more applicable as that influence is exercised in any given period of an entity's material experience. Yet study to show thyself, in thy activities, in thy thoughts, approved unto that thou hast chosen, or may choose, as thy ideal. And in the ideal, know that it is not as to what one may attain only, but as to what may be spiritual, mental and material ideals. Faint not at waiting, for in patience ye become aware of thy soul. Remember, as was given. Behold, thy brother is in thine hand. But if ye think hate, if ye think jealousy, if ye act these in thy life, what can the harvest be other than that manifested even in the experience of Cain? Then apply thy abilities, for they are many. For to each soul is given that which, if applied in the daily life, will make that soul one with the infinite. But keep humble, keep patient, keep in the manner in which the pattern has been given. For it is even as that one manifested in the flesh, even Jesus who became the Christ, who offered himself that ye through belief, through faith, through the pattern of his life, might find thy way, might find thy true relationship to the Creator, God. And he will not withhold any good thing from thee. All may have, as was given by the entity in that experience, their own troubles. Yet all may aid the brother next to thee to see the light in the creative forces. As given, in the position as an executive that deals with things and conditions, with peoples and their motivative forces, may the entity excel in the material or commercial world, in those experiences that may be a part of the entity's own self, with the opening of the mysteries in the elemental elements of the earth. May the entity see and know more of the mysteries and the occult forces that manifest in a material world. Use same, not abusing same, not a disregarding same, in aiding others to know themselves better. For, as has been given, he that would approach the throne comes leaning on the arm of a brother that has been aided. Yet having left as it were upon the skein of time and space that consciousness that only in the patience of the divine love may that hope, that helpfulness be made complete, as ye lean upon the arm of thy brother, thy friend, ye may be borne to the very presence of divinity itself. And the entity will find more and more that, in that parlance, as may be said, that ye approach more and more to the very throne of grace, ye will find thyself leaning upon the arms of some to whom ye have shown those fruits of the Spirit. To someone ye have comforted in trials, to someone whom ye have fed, whether in the fruits of the Spirit or in the needs of the body or the heart. These be those things that bring the consciousness of His abiding presence. And if the body loses patience with self, then that which has been indicated for the body is not to be the proper direction taken. But there should be the persistence. For the conditions have been, as has been given, not only of long duration, but there have been the attempts on the part of the body physically and mentally to adjust itself to the deficiencies that have existed. Give the time. Be patient. You've had years and years of the disturbance. Don't expect it to be cured in a moment and be of a permanent nature. For the body, the life, the whole of every entity is a growth. And unless it is of such a growth that it is stable, it isn't worth very much. Be patient. Be consistent. Be persistent. And follow those suggestions that have been made. And we will find help. As we find, there are such disturbances that these are hard to cope with. These are conditions which are part of the karmic experience of the entity, and there needs to be all of those administrations which may be given indicating love, thought, care, patience, kindness, gentleness that may be indicated for the entity. Physically, the conditions are spastic in nature. That is, there is little or no involuntary activity which has not become voluntary. This, then, indicates the lack of the normal development in the structural portions, especially as related to any activities or locomotion in the body's handling of self. As to the administrations, with the care, patience that may be given, there may be brought help. This would require a great deal of care, yet this should not be given to someone else, other than those responsible for this body's manifestation in the world of physical consciousness. Else those so responsible will lose their lesson to be gained. What spiritual advice would be of benefit to this body? As given. Do that, for, as has oft been given, with the use of that known, that understood in hand, more is given as that had is used. This applies more in spirit, possibly, than in any phase of man's experience. For man may separate himself from God, the Spirit, but the Spirit does not separate from man. For, has it not been given, He has not willed that any should be separated, but that all should come to a perfect knowledge and understanding of the kingdom that lies within? Have you instructions for my next step forward? As there is used that which is known and experienced in self as answering for that which is being sought. The next step is given so long as self is kept selfless and used as the channel for the infinite influence through self to that being sought. Hence self may make, may know, may seek better than being given, other than from inner through self. This is not intended as criticism nor as being sarcastic, but that ye may know that the law of the Lord is perfect, not men's conception of it. The law will be fulfilled. Will ye do it or let someone else do it? These should be choices. Will ye seek to know the law? For the Lord hath not willed that any soul should perish, but hath prepared ways of escape. He who seeks will find. He who knocks, to him it will be opened. These are irrefutable, these are unchangeable. What will ye do about them? This is left to the individual. The Lord can only offer. Man, as His child, as a co-creator with the creative forces, accepts or rejects. There's no halfway. You are or you are not. To be sure, there are various stages of unfoldment, of development, but use that thou knowest to do, and the Lord will give thee the next step. He doesn't fail in His promises, even though ye may be far, far away. Yes, here we have an entity meeting its own self. These are not desirous, and yet it is for the unfoldment and development of this soul entity. Physically, only helpful influences may be brought for the mental and soul self. Much may be the contribution for this entity in the present in kindness, patience, love. All of these are needed in the body. These will aid the soul. For, remember, the soul never forgets, and that which is practiced to the soul, in the soul, will bring eventually a growth in the knowledge, in the understanding of the love of the creative forces. Then, that to be blotted from the experience is selfishness. Becoming less and less self-aware, but more and more growing in the grace, the knowledge, the understanding that he doeth all things well. From the still small voices from within, there may come the strength of the hope, of the happiness that passeth understanding to those of an earthly reasoning mind. For he is in his holy temple in thee, and will meet thee in thine search for him. Not from without but rather from within may each soul know him, through patience with self, with others. Seeing in those that would speak evil of thee, those that would despitefully use thee, those even who would take advantage of thine gentleness, thine kindness, only the good. Knowing that none may do such save that the power be given them through the giver of all power, all life, that thou, through thine own experience, may know that the Father suffereth with each child he hath purged, that it may be a companion with him. For it was in seeking for such companionship that thy soul was brought into being. And would thou lose that birthright in him? For he will guard, sustain thee in thine seeking, but seek from within. We find from Mercury, with Uranus, a high ennobling influence in the entity. High mental attributes, especially in specific direction, having to do with people, individuals, masses, groups, as to their activities and their associations, whether in those lines of the arts or of depicting for the fellows that which is the prompting influence in the experience of others, as in story or in writing. Any of these are as the influences to which the entity is naturally drawn. But the greater development may come not in its criticism, but in its constructive aid to individuals struggling to know what is constructive in their experience. For this, then, would make for those experiences when the little niceties, that are the natural tend of the entity, become selfless and more for the advancing of the activities of others. Not of self. For he that would have life must give it. He that would know God must be, in the attributes of the earth, in those things that are of the Spirit. Gentle, kind, long-suffering, brotherly love, and, most of all must this entity learn, patience. That the entity has fallen in oft. Then, as to the appearances in the earth as the manifested body or individual in flesh, that make for experiences in the present sojourn, these must be constructive. Build not upon the shells of former activities, but use rather those experiences for the stepping stones to those things that may make for, in thine association among thy fellow men, the life becoming more and more worthwhile. Failures in the sojourns in the earth have brought, as for all of Gemini children, the experience of becoming morose, melancholy. Speaking quick without taking thought of other than to give vent to self's own spleen. In same must patience be manifested. Hence that is given first and foremost learn to be patient, not only with self. For that one cannot endure within itself it finds as a fault in others. That thou findest as a fault in others is thine own greatest fault, ever. A beautiful record. In giving the interpretations of the records as we find them here, much of these we find too beautiful to be classified or even called experiences. For, there has been a growth of this entity throughout the material sojourns. Not that there have not been wanderings at times, but a growth and an unfoldment. These records are written upon time and space. Just as light goes out from a candle influencing the universe, the light that goes out from a life influences all with whom it comes in contact and grows, dependent upon the spirit with which it is tempered. Then in patience these records may be interpreted. So until each soul, each entity, knows those closer walks, there are turmoils in the experience of every soul. More and more mental, more and more material turmoils. But to be at peace, to be in harmony with constructive creative forces, is to know him that is the way, that is life, and in him ye live and move and have thy being. For the entity has in the turmoils that have arisen lost sight of the proper evaluation of experiences, of the activities in its relationships to individuals, to groups, and to those to whom there is a duty not only in self, but that they, too, with whom the entity is associated, may know the truth that will set them free from worry, tears, sorrow, sadness. Not by the mere material things of life, but that which has made and does and will ever make for harmony in the experience. But first know ye the Lord. For the cattle and the gold and the silver are his. And all ye have is lent ye of the Lord. Only that ye give away, of self, of money, of time, of patience, of love, do ye possess. Then do thou that thou knowest to be the constructive experience in thy field, and trouble not thy mind or heart as to others. For the very thought of their becoming turmoil is opening the way for turmoil. In the application of self as respecting these, arising from mental urges, there is required that not only those about the entity but the entity apply self in a patience that is more of the active nature. Persistence is wonderful, as is attained by the entity, but impatience may destroy all the persistency. For the attributes of patience arise from the spiritual, while a great deal of persistency may be trained. What are my present errors in conducting my personal life and my work? As has been indicated, a little more patient, a little more tolerant, a little more humble. But, as has been indicated, not a tolerance that becomes timid, this would make rebellion in self. Not a patience that is not positive. Not an humbleness that becomes morbid or lacking in beauty. For as orderliness is a part of thy being, so let consistency, as persistency, be a part of thy being. Yet so clothe self with the beauties of those things expressed in nature, those things expressed in the more uplifting moments of individual activity, as to keep that peace, that balance, that makes for the realization that even though there be not fame or even fortune, those that love the Lord, that keep his ways, find that peace which passeth understanding. Not as the world gives peace, but rather as the Prince of Peace gave, ye that abide in me shall know the truth, and the truth shall indeed make ye free from those turmoils, those strifes that make men afraid. To be sure, it is almost as an axiom to say be patient, be gentle, with self as well as with the influences about self. In remaining as quiet within the more often, knowing that though one goes through the trials, though turmoils arise, there is ever within self, through the associations of self and its deeper forces with the influence of the infinite, that which will bring to the body, to the mind, in the physical forces about the body, the peace and the quietude that only brings real help. For as so oft has been indicated, no matter from what manner or through what channel help may come for a physical body or for a turmoil within the mental self, it must have, to be of evaluation, to be of a helpful force with self, its influences in the creative energies, the spiritual forces that can alone quiet. And remember, the mind is the builder in material things. It is that association or that connection between the material and the spiritual forces, or the without and the within, and their coordination within the physical functionings of the body itself, brings that the individual builds within self. Then, think constructively. Do not make for negative forces that create barriers or hardships in any way or manner. For these must eventually come back to self.